Well, welcome everybody. Kelly has asked me to step in for her as she has got a lot on her plate leading up to the expo this weekend, which I'm sure we are all very excited for. Tonight we have, well, sorry, I should also introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Murray Fleming. I run Country Meats Direct, which is a specialist free-range meat home delivery service in Sydney that also does fruits, vegetables, and a lot more. And I also have the pleasure of speaking at this weekend's expo, which I'm really looking forward to. And tonight we have two other speakers who will be speaking at the expo, being Candice Coughlan from Wild Health Hub Fermentation, who is, as Kelly said, the guru when it comes to fermentation. So Candice, welcome. Looking forward to speaking with you in a sec. And we also have Cherie Hunt, who's an essential oils expert, and also looking really forward to hearing what Cherie has to say. Essential oils is something that I've always thought smells nice, but I haven't been quite sure what they can do from a health benefit. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I guess we could start with Candice. Candice, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, why you do what you do and what you love so much about it?
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate everyone being here and online, and I just love I love sharing the knowledge that I've acquired over the last, I guess, 30 years. As you can tell from my accent, I'm not Australian born, but I have been in Australia now for 30 years. I originally grew up in a household with a mother who was a naturopath and raised in a health food store. So my upbringing was very much natural based. We had Halloween back then, and we got to go out trick-or-treating and do things like that, and then we'd get home and mom would take all the candy and throw it in the bowl and give it back out to all the other kids that came by. So there's a few scars, but
Sounds
um
like you had a smart mom.
it was all good. But yeah, so I came over to Australia originally to do a naturopathy degree, because in the early 90s in Canada, you couldn't get certified in Canada. You had to go to the States, to England or to Australia, basically, to get your certification. And I'd been here for a year and a half, in my early or late teens, sorry, backpacking and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, I'm going to the beach. If I'm going to go anywhere, I'm going to the beach to learn. Came out, did a naturopathy degree, and had my own practice for a little while, and then got divorced and life got in the way and got a corporate job and things like that happened. But what has rung true is, through my whole life, everybody has always talked to me about the way I live or natural health or what they can do. And it was sort of almost like I've always been a counselor for food and nutrition, even though I was working as a construction project manager in retail banking and stuff like that. Totally opposite of what my true calling was. And a few years ago, well, I'd say started in about 2016, 2018, I really got burnt out in the corporate world, and I realized I'd gone way astray from my natural upbringing and all my knowledge. It was like, do as I say, not as I do, kind of thing. And it's so much easier to just to talk about it. And I realized I wasn't living my truth. So I got back into it. I've started my own business. And for me, all through that time, I've been still educating, right? So still learning, still doing lots of courses and diplomas. And as the world changes in natural health, it evolves. So I've been involved in gut health and health healing, and interested in what the gut can do from a healthy living perspective for years. My whole life, we had kombucha scobies, in the 70s, well before anybody else knew what they were. And so I've always known it's played a role, and it's really been so interesting to see how the world and research is catching back up, or as I like to say, going back to the way it used to be, right? So we're realizing that not everything comes in a quick fix pill, and going back to some of those traditional ways of living, which I find I believe are going to be the most beneficial going forward. So for me, if I can share any of that education, any of my life lessons, or any of my learnings with people, so that they can have an easier way of understanding it, because the world is so complicated. We have so many, how many diets are there out there in the world, right? I don't know. I couldn't count how many different types of diets and how strict it needs to be. And we don't need, well, I do not believe we need to live that strictly. I believe we come back to my big thing, as we were saying, is food as medicine, right? Using food and foundation of healthy, those basic foundations of healthy living, of plant-based diets, of more plants in our diet, and using those different types of herbs and foods and things in not only what we eat, but also in what we put on our body, and looking back at those practices, that those are the things that are going to mainly keep us resilient and moving forward in the world.
Naturopathy is quite a big degree for people that don't know about it. It takes a very, very long time to become qualified, and you cover a lot in that degree. Was there anything specifically that drew you to the fermentation, I guess, aspect of it, or is it more what you said around the evolving science recently?
No, it's always been a part of it, but I guess for me, my favorite part was nutrition and food, because I love food. Food can be so delicious. And I found that over time, our conventional, or what we call now our food, it doesn't have flavor, it doesn't have taste, it doesn't make you feel good after you eat it. I don't even call it food. We can call it, most of it, food-like products, right? And so that was a huge thing. I love the looking at biology, and how food and can build us, right? Basically, that's what it comes down to. Is it's building us. So food, and then also herbs. Herbs is my main go-to. So using herbs, which again I look at as in a food. So what kind of herbs can you use in every day? And I'd really like to see how we can simplify it. Like, how can we just use the foods that grow, or the plant products that grow on our earth, to benefit us from any kind of, like, whether it's just for food, or you're drinking, or you're taking it as a tonic, or you're taking it as like a tincture or a powder or something like that as well. So I'm not saying, no supplements or anything like that, but going back to the basics.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people, myself included, get sick at some point in their life, and they look to what they can do, because a lot of the time when you go to general practitioners, they'll either not be able to help you, or they'll give you something that's just going to mask the symptoms. And when I got really involved with diet and nutrition, one thing that I found really powerful was make everything that you consume count, which I think is what you were alluding to. You don't just look at food as food. Look at food as so much more, and make sure that every time you're consuming food that's going to give you the best outcomes.
Absolutely. So I believe that anything that you consume will either add, or remove from your health and benefits. So there's lots of empty calories, and then there's also lots of anti-nutrient foods. When you look at even just sugar, and I'm not saying that sugar is a bad thing overall, but like we just have way too much sugar in our diet. And
Yeah, definitely.
if you just take a little bit of sugar, and if it's 1 teaspoon of sugar can impede your immune system for up to 15 to 20 minutes, right? So if you look at the food that we eat on a daily basis, or the general population eats on a daily basis, how many teaspoons of sugar are you having in your diet? And then how many times does that continuously impede your immune system? And then how do you ever get on top of it? Right? So
Definitely.
it's adding things. I definitely believe that we can live healthier lives by the philosophy of crowding out. So not focusing so much on what we have to remove. Like there are main things that you want to try and reduce. But if you actually fill your plate and you fill every dish or every time that you eat full of nutrient dense foods, you can't consume enough produce to add in all of that anti-nutrient food, right? So you crowd out the bad by just keep adding more and more of those good foods.
Can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
So, because I've been through quite a prolonged health journey, I've been multiple diets, etc., etc. And now I'm finally getting people saying, "Oh, Murray, you look good. What do you do?" And so, some people ask me questions, and one of the ones I get a lot is, "What do you do with the 3 o'clock cravings?" And I used to suffer from them myself. And so what I recommend to people is have something sour instead of sweet. So when your body's craving that candy bar at 3 o'clock, I now have, something that's been fermented, to try to cut that craving. Do you think there's merit to that, or am I just mad?
Yeah, so I definitely think that. So there's a few things. So protein is a huge thing, right? So watching your protein and making sure that you have enough protein to keep you satiated, and good fats, because you'll tend to be hungry if you don't remain satiated. So definitely looking at your protein levels and your good fats. But what fermented foods do is, as you eat more fermented foods, as you eat more foods, you are changing your microbiome. So your all of the microbes in your digestive system to for a couple things. You change the diversity. So when you have lots of different types of fermented foods is more important than just a whole bunch of one type of fermented food. Because if we can continue to build, it's the same thing as the Amazon forest, or we can look at our rainforests here, compared to monocropping. You've got lots of different things going on that support one another, right? So when you have that, you've got a more robust microbiome that can deal with lots of different foods. And then not only are the foods that you're eating absorbed better, but you're also producing a lot of different vitamins and different things. Microbes will help actually increase the nutrient value of the food that you are eating. So fermented foods help with that along the way to help with keeping you more satiated and reducing those kind of peaks and troughs. But also what it does is the easiest way to speak to it is it, if you think of, if you eat sugar all the time or sweet foods all the time, you've got microbes in your digestive system that need to break those down. And so what you're doing is you're helping those ones to grow. Whereas if you eat fermented cabbage or vegetables or a dairy product that's been fermented, you're helping those microbes to grow. So what happens is you end up with a greater population of those particular microbes, and they crave those foods. So what
Right.
happens is you start craving more fermented foods or nutrient rich foods and less sugar based foods. So you don't end up actually having the cravings. So I used to be have a huge sweet tooth. I still love chocolate, but I can eat like this much, and that's all I need. And and almost everything I eat, everyone's just like, oh, don't tell me it's too sweet. I'm like, but it is. It's just too sweet
Yeah.
because my body's not, it just doesn't know what to do with that anymore from a flavor perspective as well.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So you hear a lot about the gut-brain connection at the moment. And so what you've just explained is really part of that, isn't it?
Absolutely. Your gut and your brain, when we develop, it basically comes from the same area. So as we as when we're older and we're eating and it goes both ways. So we're sending signals from our gut to our brain and our brain to our gut. So, you talk about being in front of a crowd and having to do a speech and getting butterflies in your stomach. It's because the nervous system recognizes the excitement or the energy that's going around with that, and it affects your stomach. The same way, your stomach actually your digestive system with the foods can actually then go backwards and then trigger our emotions, our moods
Wow.
around it, and also our cravings.
Yeah, wow. That's that's super interesting. And on the weekend with your talk, will you be elaborating more on this, or have you got a specific focus that you're going to be
Yeah,
you
I'm definitely gonna go more into this. I know we were just having a general conversation here,
know,
but it's my passion. As I said to Kelly before, I can just talk about this all day because it's interesting. It's been part of my life. But I'll definitely go into a lot more detail, a lot more on fermentation and whole foods and just different practices that you can look at with food and herbs and different ways that you can easily and simply bring that nutrition and health back into your everyday.
that sounds awesome. I can't wait to listen to you talk on the weekend. And I will segue now to our other speaker who's also joined us today, Cherie Hunt, who's an essentials oil expert. And I think, as I said before, I'm not sure if it was part of the recording, but essential oils to me have always smelt really good, but I've never really understood what their health benefits are. So I'm super interested to hear about that. And just on a funny little side story or side note, my wife and I just celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary. And we went back to the Maldives where we went on our honeymoon. And 10 years ago, they said that the Maldives would be, gone. It would have flooded within 10 years, but we stayed in the exact same room. It was exactly the same. But what made that trip so memorable is the scent that the guys use. They put a little bit of essential oils in with some of the bedding and the towels, and they have these hand towels they give you on arrival. And I don't know exactly what it was, but it just having that beautiful scent around us just made us so much happier and more relaxed instantly when we got there. So welcome, Cherie. We would love to hear from you about why you do what you do and what makes you so passionate about it.
Thanks, Murray. I was health conscious pretty much from birth. we had a lot of rules and regulations about what we ate and all that sort of. I was brought up vegetarian. We had fish when Dad caught it at the beach once a year. And on very, very rare occasions, we'd have fish and chips out of a newspaper from the shop. But I didn't know what I know now. And so a lot of the stuff that I knew, although it was good information, was just not enough. So I was quite sick at some point. And every doctor that I went to said I had nothing wrong with me. Eventually I went to a health food shop because I would get to work and feel weak as a kitten and lacked concentration and didn't want to stay at work. So I'd go home and I'd feel better. Home was by the beach. So I went to this health food shop, and the owner happened to be a naturopath who was helping people to figure their health issues out. And she was specializing in Candida at the time. And she told me about Candida and that's what I had after she gave me this 3-page questionnaire. And so I learned all about Candida and how to diet, to not feed it, to actually help it to die, getting your gut in order. And of course, now we talk about gut health, and there's a whole lot more strains of bacteria that live in our gut and that help us.
So Candida, that is a bacterial overgrowth, is that correct?
Yeah, so yeasty thing that.
Okay. And that was the main contributor to your lack of energy at the time?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And essential oils and the products that I am a brand partner for are a huge part of that. And I learned about that because she put something on his feet that cleared an infection that was in his eye. And I was like, what was that? And she said that was lavender oil. It only took about 15, 20 minutes, and that watered out of his eye.
From applying it to his feet?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God, that is just so cool. What can you do for me? Because I was very unhealthy at the time. I had no appetite and I couldn't sleep. So she suggested that I take Ninja Red, which is an antioxidant drink full of phytonutrients and polyphenols, and so I took that and omega-3s, and they were from the company, so they have essential oils infused in them. So the essential oils help everything to work better. So I took those the day I got them, and I slept like a baby that very night. So I was sold on Young Living as a product, as a company. I learned from then. I just kept on learning more and more. So I have now 14.5 years of experience and learning under my belt for essential oils and the products that Young Living have. At the expo, I'm actually going to talk about the starter bundle, which is, I don't know if you can see it, if I can put it up there. There's 10 oils in that. There's 5 single oils, and there's 7 blends, and there's 2 more. So let's see, green. They're going to be covered up by the green screen. So those oils are, it's like a first aid kit. So there's something for your respiratory system, there's something for the digestion, there's something for pain, there's something for immunity, and there's 3 oils that are pretty much set for emotions. And the 5 single oils are lemon, lavender, frankincense, peppermint, and orange. So it's a really good range. And the workshop that I'm doing at the expo will actually go through each oil and talk about what I use them for, and we're going to try them out and do all of that sort of thing. So that's going to be a bit of fun.
That's very interesting. You know, I think one thing I've noticed with the health and wellness sort of space is that, especially when you're talking about nutrition, there might be 20 different diets, but 2 or 3 could work really well for one person with one particular problem. But 2 or 3 might not work for them, or they might work for somebody else. And I've always found it interesting how two things that are quite different can give a similar result. And what you're saying is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but essential oils can also provide, similar benefits for certain people as would a diet or maybe another type of intervention.
So everyone's different, and there's no one size fits all. So when you're talking about a couple of different diets that help one person, they might not help the other. So I don't tell people what they should use. I guide them, and I help them to figure it out for themselves. Because if I use lavender oil for an allergy so that my nose won't run and I'll stop sneezing and my eyes will stop itching, somebody else says to me, no, I don't like lavender, I hate it. So there's another oil that will help them. Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, I was just thinking about your story. You weren't putting weight on. I guess you were you were, I guess, nutrient deficient, or your body wasn't able to absorb the nutrients correctly. So you weren't able to put
I
that.
had the weight, but I wasn't healthy weight. It was Candida weight. So Candida actually puts on weight in a way,
Okay.
and I wasn't overweight.
Yep.
But when I started to reduce, I was eating like a horse. I was eating a lot of food, and I was still losing weight because I was not feeding the Candida, and the Candida wasn't giving me all that extra weight. But once all of that was gone, I would have started putting on healthy weight.
And were you able to use some of the essential oils with, to help
At that
with the
time, I didn't know about them.
Okay.
So the healthy diet that I was on for 2 months that made me lose so much weight, I now believe that I could have done it slightly differently and not lost the weight, like swapped it over and done
Okay.
it more gradually so that I wasn't so gaunt and sickly looking. But I hadn't felt better in my life at that point. The problem with talking about essential oils like this is that some people will go out and buy essential oils from the shops, in the health food shops or somewhere like that. And the problem with that is they are marketed and they are for a profit, not for a purpose. So you'll often find, and in fact, most often you'll find that they are adulterated, they are not complete, and they don't do the same thing every batch.
Sounds like the food industry.
Yes.
So with essential
And
oils,
it's been influenced by the pharmaceutical companies and the powers that be, because they don't want us to be healthy. So that influence has trained our children, and so our adults are now dependent on a system that makes them sick. And so I love teaching people that that's not the way to go, and we can do better.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
essential oils, Young Living essential oils have every component that should be in there. And they have 15 tests that they do 3 times on every batch of essential oils before they get their label. If they don't pass, they get sent off to get tested again to make sure that nobody's made any mistakes. They will not put their label on an oil that is not up to their standard, and their standards are high. And that's why I use their oils and not anyone else's.
Well, that's very reassuring. Excuse my naivety, but obviously you can put oils in a diffuser and you can use them, you can massage with them, etc. But can you consume them as well? Because I remember you said something about them being in a supplement. So does that mean that you can actually
Yes.
consume the oil?
So The supplements contain essential oils, one, to protect them from just being from going off, basically, and two, to clean receptors in the body and clear the space so that the supplements can go and do their job. So our bodies are bombarded every day with toxins and things that mess up our absorption of good nutrients. So even if you're not taking a supplement, your food is not absorbing properly. And that was the one thing that I learned when I had Candida. That was stopping me from absorbing food properly, absorbing the nutrients from my food. And so the essential oils that they put into the supplements helps them to be more available to the body.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I just love the health space because there's so many ways that you can, elevate your life, your existence, remove symptoms, make yourself feel better. And it sounds like this is going to be another tool in the arsenal, which is quite awesome.
So the thing that I like the most, and I don't do it because I forget, the fact that when you have the slightest hint of anything happening, like a symptom developing, you can hit it with an essential oil and it will go away. If you leave it too long, then you've got to hit it every 10 minutes for 3 hours before it will go away. So that's part of what I teach people and part of what I try to live up to.
So, for example, you might feel like you're getting a sore throat. It's best to do something really quickly.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just a case of putting a couple of drops of lemon oil in a glass of water and drinking it. That could be just all you need. But if it's not, then do it again. So there's reasons. There's a whole lot of other stuff that you can learn to understand all of this and the reason why they work early on, and then you have to be pummeling it if you wait. It's like little Johnny gets he gets grizzly, and mum's busy cooking dinner, and so she just makes him wait, and then it's dinner time, so they have dinner, and he's not hungry, he doesn't want to eat his food, and then it's bath time and he's got a headache, and he goes to bed and she gets him to sleep, and at 2 o'clock in the morning he's got a fever because she didn't do anything. If she'd knocked it out before that, he would have been sleeping through the night and better in the morning. But because she left it and he's woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning with a fever, she had to go every 10 minutes, rotating 2 or 3 different oils on his feet, so that, for 2 or 3 hours. So 2 parents, they swap. Day one, where are you up to? I'll take over, go and have some sleep, sort of thing. So that's called mama mode.
Yeah.
Where you actually, because the oils stay in your body for a few hours, but that initial half-life of the essential oil in your body is about 10 to 20 minutes. So if you want to really hit it, every 10 to 15 minutes, you add more so that it's staying in the body for up to 2 or 3 hours, and then it will have that huge impact that you need. But it doesn't have to be that way if you hit it when it starts.
Yeah.
So as soon as you get the sign, any inkling that something's going to go wrong.
Yeah, I think coming into cold and flu season, learning about that's going to be of super importance. And I also wonder to ask Candice as well, with food and nutrition, on the same lines as Cherie's just said with the essential oils, when you feel yourself, getting a little bit sick, when you feel a sore throat coming on or you're losing energy, Candice, with food and your work, do you know of anything that can, that you can really jump in and be proactive with?
Oh, for sure. So it's the same as what Cherie's saying is, so what we tend to do is we tend to be too busy in our life to deal with stuff, and we just push through. And by doing that, what happens is it allows whatever it is that's going on to take hold, or if the reasons that we're not feeling as well might just be that we're actually overdoing it. We're doing too much, right? That's one of the biggest things that happens at the moment, is that we take on too much. We're doing too much. There we find those stressors in our lives are impacting us physically and mentally. So if you can get a hold of those, and as Cherie's saying, essential oils are basically concentrated herbs, right? They're all the plant-based forms. So it's the same as you can take oil of oregano. I'm going to say oregano, or you can take the herb. It's something that's really, really good for your immune system. So you can add it to your salad. You can have a little bit in some pesto. You can add little bits of this here and here and here, and have those things in our food in our everyday that help just keep, if you're talking about immune system or being run down, for example. Or you can use it as an oil, or as a concentrated tincture, or a herbal tea, or another formula that way, on top of your food. So they all work very much in the same way. Oils, again, are a concentrated form, like when you're taking a multivitamin or a herbal tincture or something like that. If you can add it a little bit at a time, you may prevent it. And then as soon as you get those little niggles of whatever it is, a little bit of a headache, or you're not sleeping so well the first night. So I use essential oils on my feet every single night when I go to bed. So every single night I have my evening routine, and then I put some essential oils on the soles of my feet. I rub my feet together, I stick them under the covers. Not only am I absorbing them through my skin and through my feet, but I'm actually, every time I turn over, I smell it, right? So you were talking about the smells and the scents. So our olfactory nervous and the way it works on our nervous system, the same as the vagus nerve on the brain, you smell and you get the medicinal value comes in healing that way. Same as when you're cooking food, when you take the time to prepare food, and it doesn't have to take hours and hours and hours, but you take the time to prepare the food. You are cooking that food, you're putting your love and energy into the food. It becomes more healing. It becomes stronger in strength and how it actually works in our body, from the way we smell it, the way we see it, and then the way we taste it, and or how it physically works in the body. But yeah,
When you talk about
definitely
concentration,
jump on it.
I'm so looking forward to both your talks. Do you have any questions for each other?
Well, we know each other.
yeah, we do.
So yeah,
Candice has showed me some. Do you know what I did today, Candice? I wanted some potatoes. I wanted just spuds, so I stuck them in the oven, and I got them out, and I put my, the butter, salt, and pepper thing, and I put a little bit of mozzarella cheese, and then I got my red cabbage sauerkraut out, and I chucked that on there. And, oh boy, was it yummy. And I felt like I was eating something more healthy than just spuds, because I had this beautiful sauerkraut that I had made thanks to Candice.
Well, I had the exact same thing for dinner, Cherie. We did like a loaded loaded potatoes tonight.
Oh,
So there
cool.
you go. And it's the same thing. I was just busy. I was going crazy. And all of a sudden I was like 6 o'clock and I'm like, oh, what are we going to do? So, some potatoes, some sweet potatoes, a whole bunch of different, I just added a whole bunch of different veggies, added some of the fermented food. So you're getting the probiotics, you're getting the extra nutrients, but it's also helping you to digest, it's helping you to make the food that you're eating more bioavailable at the same
Yeah,
time. Right?
exactly.
So I've said this before, and Andrew and Emma have done some of my fermentation classes and stuff, but you take a cup of cabbage. It has around, depending on where you get it from, but 60, 75 milligrams of vitamin C. You take a cup of fermented cabbage, so sauerkraut, and it can be anywhere up to 700 milligrams of vitamin C. Right?
Wow.
So you get the nutrients that's in the actual vegetable in the first place, but those probiotics in that fermentation process actually change the value and add nutrients to your diet and to your body. Yeah, so it's good
Transmutation.
fun, and it tastes amazing.
It does. It does. It's a kind of an acquired taste for some people.
Oh, for sure. And we've talked about this before. And sometimes, when I was growing up, my background, my family ate sauerkraut, but they ate just plain cabbage that had been, I'm not sure how they made their sauerkraut, to be honest, when I was young, but it was horrible. It tasted horrible, and I would never wanted to eat it. But you can do a lot, and if you make your own fermented foods, you have the ability to adjust the flavor to your profile and to your liking. So
Yeah.
it's the main thing. So number one, fermented foods that you buy at a grocery store, you need to make sure that you're not buying off the shelf sauerkraut or off the shelf kombucha and different things like that, because once it's been made shelf stable, it no longer has probiotics in them. They've had to pasteurize it, and it's no different than it's not a living product. So definitely, if you're buying anything that for a probiotic purpose, you want to buy something that is in the refrigerator section. But also, you can make it quite easily. You can make one batch of sauerkraut, and it might take you an hour to make that, but it can last for months and months and months and months. And it is multiple times, but it doesn't only need to be sauerkraut. You can make fermented mayonnaise, you can make barbecue sauce, you can make salad dressings, you can make sodas that replace your soft drink and your cordials. And there's lots of ways that you can bring fermented foods into your diet that don't need to taste yucky or too strong, and you can adapt it. And as your family adjusts, as you have more probiotics in your diet, which we were speaking about before, you won't find it as strong tasting, and you won't find it as unpalatable, and you'll actually start to crave them.
Yeah. So when you were talking about concentration before, the concentration of peppermint oil, 1 drop, is the equivalent of 28 cups of peppermint tea.
Yeah.
So that's how concentrated they are.
Wow. We've got some questions in the chat. I might use this opportunity to ask them, and if anybody has got any other questions, please add them to the chat. Zach has asked Cherie, I guess this is a really big question, so just, I don't know if you can condense it, but he's asked about the history of essential oils, specifically in the Bible. Could you talk about maybe one of those oils that we've all heard a lot about?
Okay, so the first essential oil story that you probably would have heard, most people would have heard, is that Jesus was given gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And it turns out that the gold wasn't actually gold money, it was another oil. And the founder of Young Living actually found the place where the wise men would have picked up the oils from, and found balsam, frankincense, and myrrh in the banks of this it was called a bank, where they distilled the oils. I've actually found on Google where they said it was something else, But if you go through the Bible, there's mentions of essential oils all the way through the Bible. It doesn't actually tell you that Jesus used essential oils to heal people, but he did. It doesn't actually spell it out. But there's a whole lot of the miracles that Jesus performed that were actually therapeutic healings, where they actually got something to get it started and they went home and they did stuff to, so go and sin no more was not about doing bad things. It was, you are doing this to your body, stop doing that and you'll get better. So a lot of the miracles that we call miracles were actually not instant healings. They were therapeutic healings. And there's 3 words for healing in the Bible. One of them is spiritual. There's about 3 instances of that. Another one is instant healing. And the other one is the therapebo, which is the therapy healing.
Okay, wow.
So,
and Tara has asked that she's heard some are good for migraines when applied to your temples. Is there any go-to for a
there's
headache?
a lot of oils that are good for migraines. So peppermint's great for pain. Lavender's great for pain. Sometimes lemon is enough. We have a blend called M-grain, which is really good for migraines for some people. I know one of my clients swears by this M-grain. She puts it on and doesn't get a migraine. She can feel it coming on. She puts that on and doesn't get it. Again, it's a matter of figuring out what works for you.
Yeah, great. Because everyone's different, like you were touching on before. And Candice, Zach has said regarding diversity of the bacteria in the gut, what determines the bacterial strain in a fermented food if you're not using a starter? Would a cabbage accommodate different bacteria to a turnip?
Yeah, so there's a few things different. Most fermented vegetables have some general lactobacillus types. So if you're not using a culture and you're using what's called wild fermentation, is you're just using the microbes that are on the plants themselves, but also the microbes that are in your environment. So you could take the same cabbage, let's pretend you're going to stick it in your suitcase and I fly it to Canada to visit my family, and I make the same batch of sauerkraut over there that I do as a sauerkraut here in my house. It's going to be different. You're going to have slightly different varieties. So the best way, if you're actually trying to strive for specific strains, is to use a starter culture. So you can buy starter cultures and you can add that as your fermentation starter, or you can use the wild fermentation process. But you've got like Lactobacillus plantarum, which is one of the main ones that it's going to be in all your fermented vegetables. It's going to be there in abundance. So you can proliferate different types, but a culture is going to give you specific ones, if that helps.
Yeah, that's very
interesting. You can't
really
control a wild fermentation because it's going to depend on where you get your vegetables from and the environment and what's in your environment. So I ferment 50 things at any one time in my house. My house would be rife with all sorts of different types of, and I'm doing lots of different types of ferments. So I'm doing, I'm doing kombucha, I'm doing kefir, I'm doing sourdough, I'm doing vegetables, I'm doing yogurts. So all of those have different microbes. And if you're doing a wild ferment, it's just going to be what's in the air gets cultured. And that's why one of the things, if you're doing lots of ferments, you need to be careful and you don't keep them too close together because you'll end up with the kombucha SCOBY on the top of your sauerkraut or your fermented vegetables, which can happen.
Yeah, wow. And Emma's just asked another question for Candice, which is also another really interesting question. She said that if you're really used to processed foods that contain a lot of sugar, when you make that jump and you start introducing, more whole foods, homemade food with minimal sugar, do your taste buds reject them? Is it because of their sour flavor? I guess the question is, what does exposure to certain foods over a prolonged time do to your you know, your sense of taste, and how long does it take for things like that to change?
Well, it can take a while. But it also, so it'll depend on how many, let's say if we're talking about fermented foods just versus a high sugar processed diet. So actually there's two stages. There's a high sugar processed diet, and then there's a general whole foods diet, and then there's the fermented foods on top of a whole foods diet, right? So it's going to slightly change. So really high processed food diet, people go, well, I don't like the taste of tomato, and I don't like the taste of an avocado, and I don't like the taste. So a lot of it's texture as well, don't get me wrong, but those flavors, a processed food diet just doesn't have them. They're artificial, they're fake. They're either really, really strong in one way, they're high in MSG and preservatives and numbers and all the different chemicals. So your body actually doesn't recognize what real food tastes like anymore. So once you actually eliminate more of that out of your diet, the real food will actually taste more like real food. But then also, if you think of, you buy a tomato that you bought at a major supermarket, and you taste a tomato that you've grown in your own garden. It is, you know, night and day in flavor. So again, if you start then going to farmers markets and you start introducing those sort of more sustainable type practices of eating seasonally and eating sort of food that's only available at that time. And our bodies are also meant to eat seasonally, for taste, but so that we enjoy the food that we're eating, so that we eat more of it, but also so that our bodies can have a little bit of rest from certain things. So eating lots of raw food salads is, everyone goes, just eat more salad, eat more salad, eat more salad, which is great, but it's really high in fiber, which is fabulous, but it's really also hard on our digestive system. So if you eat more salad and fresh fruits and vegetables in spring, when we're wanting that energy, that boost, that new life coming into us in the way that we eat seasonally, and then you eat more roasted vegetables or slow cooked vegetables come winter, your body's actually going to be able to absorb the nutrients out of those different foods at those times better, because you get a break, a little bit of a break. The food that's available at those times, so the sweet potatoes and the squashes and the different root vegetables that are available in winter, are number one, more nutrient, but we also can digest them better, and it gives our body a little break from the tomatoes and the cucumbers and the capsicums and the lettuces that we have in spring. So it sort of changes our flavor profile, but it also changes the availability of the nutrients. And then it changes the way we taste it, and then the way we like it. And so we eat more of it at that time, if that helps.
It definitely does, and it's just another reason why we should be eating seasonally, right? Another great question from Andrew, and I guess we could ask this to both of you in your respective fields. So Candice, we'll stick with you to start with. Is it possible to overdo the amount of fermented foods you eat? And then after you finish, Cherie, if you could answer the question in regards to essential oils, can you overdo essential oils?
So first of all, you absolutely can. So it's the same as anything. You don't want to go from a fully processed food diet, or even if you're eating healthy and have never had any kind of fermented foods before, to eating like a bowl or a cup of sauerkraut and drinking a big thing of kombucha. What can happen is, number one, our bacteria in our body, it causes a whole shift and change. It causes a fight of the bacterias and the microbes in our guts to go, who are these invaders and what's going on? And there's going to be a big battle. It's very simplistically. It's going to make you not feel well. But it also causes, what it also can do is it can cause a really huge surge in detoxification. So when we put anything really healthy into our body, they can call it a healing crisis. They can call it all different things, but basically is your body all of a sudden is flooded with all of these nutrients. And all of a sudden you've got all these toxins, which we have in our environment, in our air, in our food, in our clothes, and everything like that. And they're stored in our body. And now our body wants to get rid of them because it's got all this room for these healthy stuff going on. So all of a sudden they flood these toxins into our lymph system and our bowels and into our blood to try and eliminate them from our body. But in doing so, it's going to make you feel really unwell for a little while. So my suggestion always, and I'm sure Cherie will say the same, is start low and slow. I recommend, if you've never had fermented food before, honestly, start with a teaspoon of it once on a day. The next day, have 2 teaspoons. See how you feel. The next day, have maybe 2 teaspoons twice a day. See how you feel. And then just slowly build it up. Your whole body system needs to shift to adjust to the different way of eating and what's going on in your body.
Wow. Very interesting. I would hate to overdose on cabbage, so I'm glad.
Well, you'd spend a little bit of time in the toilet and probably not be too happy.
And Cherie, the same question for essential oils. Can you overdo it?
If you've never used essential oils before, my best advice to you is just 1 drop at a time. It's that powerful, and you start slow. Like Candice said, you start slow. I actually practice raindrop technique, which is a massage that uses a set of essential oils. It's very gentle massage, and it applies oils to your feet and to your back. And I do a client history to make sure that I'm not going to overdo the detox. I'll reduce the amount of oils that I use on you if you're likely to have a detox reaction that will make you uncomfortable and not want to come back. There you can overdo essential oils. You just need to be aware of how the oils, and I teach people when I'm going through the oils, I teach people how to start at your waist with a bottle and just circle up until you can smell it. And when you can smell it, you just stop there and you breathe it normally. And that gives you the smell, right? So if you like it, then you can go ahead and go, oh, I like that. And you can put it on your hand and rub your hands together and breathe it like this. There's a whole lot of ways that you can do it, but 1 drop at a time. And if you think you need 2 drops, try 2 drops, but don't start with 10 drops because it's just going to cost you money, and it could make you feel uncomfortable, but it's not going to give you, more is not better. Less is more.
And you touched on, if somebody comes to see you, you would give them a questionnaire or speak with them, and you'd evaluate how their body might react from a detoxing perspective. For example, old Murray's here. He's 20 kilos heavier, smokes, drinks, and parties, right? I'm guessing you would have gone really slow with me at that point in my life. How does somebody know?
So mostly it's toxins and age, and so very young and very old, we automatically reduce. If you're a hairdresser and you're hanging out with chemicals all day, every day, that's a toxic situation that is probably going to detox very heavily. And so I would start low on that one. There's a system for us to work it out.
Okay, so it's not just physical shape. It's not,
it's
giving my old self
environmental as well. So if you're a pharmacist, you're exposed to chemicals all the time. And if you have medical conditions where you're taking medication, that's another toxic situation. So we don't want to detox all of that out of you if it's helping you. So with essential oils, if you're going to start using essential oils, first of all, get Young Living because they know what they're doing. And second of all, start slow. And I'm always there to guide and help anybody who wants to get started.
Yeah, great. That was super fascinating. I'm really looking forward to hearing you both speak on Saturday at the expo.
I think, as we've said tonight, it's everything in, everybody is different and everything like that. I don't eat fully plant-based for sure. I have in my past, but I eat good quality meat. So for me, if I'm going to eat any meat or any meat products, I definitely try and eat the absolute best quality I can. Same as, taking good quality essential oils or good quality supplements. It's just, you don't need as much of the other stuff if you can get good quality in anything that we do.
Definitely. And
And
would
it balances out the cost.
well, yeah, and it also saves you a lot, in the long run. Medical bills
Yep.
are not cheap.
That's right.
Absolutely.
I remember when I got sick, I would have spent $10,000-$20,000 in about 12 months trying to work it all out. And if I had have known half of what I know now, I probably would have spent, a tenth of that or less.
And we're learning, and this is why I love this community, right? So it's being able to share our knowledge and everybody being on the same page of wanting to try and learn and do the best for ourselves and our families and our communities in all shapes and forms, so that we can provide for ourselves. It's fabulous.
Okay, great. Thanks again, and hope you all have a great night.
Yeah, that was
Thanks.
great. Thanks,
you on the
everyone.
weekend.
Excellent job, Murray.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, amazing. I'm Kelly Wilkins from My Self-Reliance. Welcome to the My Self-Reliance Expo 2024. We are so excited for you to come and experience our speakers, workshops and store holders. There is so much in store for you today.
It's beautiful. Absolutely stunning. It's going to brighten up any room. Right? Absolutely stunning. Going once, going twice. Sold. $15 right now. Simon's winning. Sold. Well bought, man. Well bought.
If you like what you've seen here, come to our My Self-Reliance Festival. Save the date, 18th to the 20th of October. We'll see you here.